Hello and welcome to our monthly Edge User Group webinar. We're glad you're able to join us today. Before we get started, I would just like to remind everyone that this webinar is being recorded and it will be available on our ACRO webpage within 24 hours. I will share that link later with you. And if you haven't already, please do turn on closed captions. And if you have any questions for our panel, please do use the Q&A feature to ask questions. And you can ask your questions at any time. You can ask anonymously. And without any further ado, I would like to hand it over to Julia. Thank you, Julia.
Hello, friends. Welcome to November's Edge User Group. We're so glad you're here. You are what makes our work fun to do and exciting to engage with you all. So welcome. Just a few moments to say Happy International Education Week to one and all. It is always such a special week for us to get to share our work and what we do and the international students who really give us the opportunity to do this great work. So I had the pleasure and privilege of going to a breakfast this morning with IIE, ECA, State Department ECA, and NAFSA to celebrate sort of some of the founding groups that were together way back when Open Doors was doing this work. Certainly since the 1970s, we've all been working together, and ACRO has worked with IIE and their good work to report data on international students in this country as well as students studying abroad. So for all of you who fill out those surveys, thank you. It is important work. It's really important for one another to learn about where we are as a country and bringing international students here, what they're studying, etc. So thank you for that. Now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome and introduce you to our International Education Standards Council here on the webinar with you. They are led by Jasmine Saidi Kunert, who is their chair. And today we have several of them on the webinar with you. I believe we have Robert Watkins, Shelby Kearley, Emily Say, Leslie Clausen, who is here. Anybody else? Did I miss anybody? And we also have Dave Mahaly and Drew Carlisle here from ACRO. So welcome to all of
Nancy Katz will
them.
be here to talk about some updates in India that we have.
Oh, and Nancy.
In there. Yeah, it's the whole menagerie is
Wow.
assembled today. I'm very thankful that we have so many of the ISC that are able to join us. There's many good things to be thankful for.
Yes, this is our month that we give a special day just to be grateful for all of that we have. So let's talk a little bit about the ISC. Why are they here and why are they important? Well, they are your representatives from colleges and universities and credential evaluations around the country who are really experts in the field, have a lot of years of experience doing what they do. They collect research, review, prepare recommendations for EDGE. And without them, EDGE would not be what it is today, the resource that you all can use in your daily work to help you and assist you along the way. So we thank them for that. And they look forward to hearing from you about what we could be adding. Any new credentials that you've seen that you'd like to share with us, we always welcome those as well. So let's move on to what we do in every one of these and do our poll. Velma, do we have a poll for everybody?
Yeah, we like to know if you've been here before with us or not. We like to know, are you already subscribed to Edge? We like to know where you see yourself in, in international, in comparative international education. Who do you work for, during the day? And the things that we're going to talk about during this gathering today, we're going to talk about a doctorate that's issued up in Prince Edward Island. We're going to discuss some clarification on some grading in Cameroon. We're going to be discussing a first professional degree in law in Italy, some clarification of some various four-year degrees within India, talk about some grading and how to go about understanding that at the university level within Nepal. We have a pretty good number of responses, I think, right?
Wonderful. Whoa. Are you an Edge subscriber? Many, many, many thanks to the 65 of you that are Edge subscribers. We appreciate your subscriptions. And the 2 that are not, we hope that from today's webinar, you might get some inclination of whether or not you want to change that and become an Edge subscriber. It really is a great way for you to have a resource across departments at your institution. Is this your first user group? Wow. Over 20% of you have said, yes, it is. Welcome. We're glad you're here. We hope you come back again soon. And no, many of you, we thank you, our regulars who are here every month with us. We are grateful for you as well.
For those of you that it's your first time, as Belma mentioned at the beginning, if anything that we're discussing brings up a question for you, that we are going to have time at the end for that Q&A. And so put that down in the Q&A section. And that's where we're going to be able to kind of look at all of those questions and figure out what we're going to be able to answer live for you. So think about that. And in the chat, as you see, let's talk about some fun stuff. Maybe throw something you're thankful for in there. I hear that everyone got a first, or some people got a first snow today. I'm sure you're very thankful that you had an extra month without that snow.
Exactly. Well, and also that 93% of you are institutional staff. Wonderful. Thank you. We're glad you're here. Evaluation staff, we have a few of you as well. So without further ado, Drew, I'm going to turn it on over to you so you can turn it on over wherever it goes after that. Thank you all.
Yeah, everyone really wants to hear from our experts that we assemble, get together, and make sure that we're looking at primary sources so that we can give you that advice about how to best understand those credentials that are coming in. Shelby Kearley, would you tell me what they're doing about vets up there in Prince Edward Island?
I sure will. So earlier this year, we got a question from an Edge subscriber asking for some clarification about the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine credential entered in the Prince Edward Island profile. And that question was asking for clarification about whether this was considered a doctoral degree or not. So we did a little bit of research. I reached out to Atlantic Veterinary College, which is attached to the University of Prince Edward Island and offers the DMV program in PEI, for some clarification. And they told us that, yes, we actually need to update the profile, the credential entry for this credential. So the program is actually called Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, but this is in fact an undergraduate degree. The admission requirement is 21 semester courses of specific prerequisites. So it's about 2 years of study. The program itself is 4 years in length. It does lead to a first level undergraduate credential on the same level as a bachelor's degree. And this is comparable to the first professional degree in veterinary medicine, which is the comparability that's currently listed on the credential entry. This credential does actually give access to both master's degrees and doctoral degrees. So it does give access to those post-bachelor credentials, or students can go directly into the workforce. So we are going to get that updated very shortly, but we wanted to let you know that that edit was coming up. And I will turn it back over to Drew.
Hot potato, hot potato. I would rather give it to Jasmine so that we can talk about what we were looking at down in Cameroon. And to be specific, we looked at the Anglophone side of the grading is what all of this was surrounding, not the French side. Jasmine, would you like to explain a little bit more about what we found? And when I say we, that's a very generous use of a pronoun.
It is we. We are a village. Thank you, and hello, everybody. Cameroon, as many of you know, operates on a dual education system, an Anglophone and a Francophone. We're going to focus on the Anglophone section today, specifically on the grading scale for their secondary education. And this came to my attention because I was just going to Edge Cameroon to see what is the recommendation for the certificates that are offered at the secondary level. And what I noticed was the column that says suggested US equivalence all the grades listed are pass, 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 fail, fail, and the same thing for the next tier, which is the GCE A levels. So I presented this to our group here at the IESC, and with some suggestions, and we have gone back and forth, and we have offered you with the placement recommendation for the grading equivalence. So many of you, probably if you're not familiar, the GCE O levels, or the General Certificate of Education exams that are culminate in the ordinary level subjects, are taken at the end of 11th year of secondary school. And these are external exams that are conducted by the Cameroon Ministry of Education's secondary education body. The classification of the grades that appear on the final examination certificate are shown in the letter grades of A, B, C, D, E, and ungraded. So the recommendations that IESC has provided under the new and updated column are as follows. For the subjects that received grade A, which is the highest pass, the US equivalent is recommended to be an A. For the letter grades of B and C, they are classified as B and C. And for the letter grades of D and E, the descriptor is an fail. This will appear on the document as D and E, but they are considered a fail. So we have also recommended the grade of F. And ungraded, it is what it is, ungraded, and it is not calculated into the cumulative average. So in order to be considered to have passed the subjects that allow you to have, let's say, the comparability to what we recommend and for EDGE, Cameroon, GCE O levels, you need to have satisfactory grades of A, B, and C to be considered comparable to having completed high school. Then when we looked at the General Certificate of Education advanced level exams, which are conducted at the end of the 13th year cycle, so that takes 2 years beyond the O levels, the students can focus on taking as many as A-level subjects that they can, as low as 1 subject to as high as 3-4 subjects. But the grades that they receive under external exam certificate are, as you see, A, B, C, D, E, O, or F. Under the column suggested US equivalents, previously we had just noted them as passes, and then a fail, and a pass at the ordinary level. And I will explain that under the new column, which is the new and updated. So our recommendation has been to recognize the letter grades of A, B, and C, as you'll see on the chart. These are considered the high passes, and we have recognized their A as a US equivalent A, the B is equivalent to a US B, and also the C as equivalent to a US letter grade of B. The low passes are the D's and E's, but the E is still considered a pass on the GCE O level, A level. So the D has been equated to a letter grade of C, and we have decided to assign the letter grade C- to the E. Now, if you see a letter grade O on the GCE O level, this subject is not considered a pass at the A level, but it is considered a pass as a C grade on an ordinary level exam. So if you have an applicant who presents to you their O levels, and they may have, let's say, 4 subject passes on their O levels, and they submit to you their GCE A-level certificate, and they may have 2 subject passes with grades A and B, but 1 with a grade of O, you can consider that O subject as comparable to a C pass on the ordinary level exam. So it kind of gets that sort of a treatment. It's not ignored, but it is reclassified as an O-level grade pass at a C. And of course, an F is an F. So what you will see now will be this new and updated chart and with the letter grades of A, B, C, and F for the O levels, and A, B, B, C, C minus, and F for the A levels. Thank you, and I'm going to, I believe, pass this on to Emily.
That's right. We're the Villaggio includes advice for Italy from Emily. We're going to go in here and we're going to talk about some law degrees. There's been some fun back and forth with all of this.
Thanks, Drew. Thanks, Jasmine. So yes, we're going to take a spin around Italy since we received a query from an edge user about law degrees there. So currently, in order to practice law, one must first complete the Laurea Magistrale in Jurisprudenza. This is a straight 5-year, 300 ECTS credit program following the high school qualification, which is either the maturity diploma or the state exam diploma. This is referred to as a unico ciclo or single cycle straight 5-year degree. Even though it follows the high school qualification, because it's 5 years long, it is regarded as level 7 on the European qualifications framework, meaning that it has the same status as the second cycle qualification. In fact, for a brief period during the early aughts, the law degrees were split into 2 following the Bologna style structure 3+2. Such that at the end of the 2 years, after the 3 years, it led to the Laurea Specialistica. Regardless, because they are, whether it's the Laurea Specialistica from the early aughts or the current Laurea Magistrale, they both represent a total of 5 years of study again, 300 ECTS credits. The unico ciclo actually is often translated by the Italians as the integrated master. So we do regard it as equivalent to a master's degree, with the understanding, though, that it is also the first professional degree in Italy, or the professional degree in Italy for law. On to the next slide, please. So we know that we have the Bologna style Laurea Magistrale and the Laurea Specialistica, but there is some Italian terminology wrangling. We also need to be aware of the pre-Bologna law degree, which was 4 years in length rather than 5, and it was referred to as just the Laurea. But despite the pre-Bologna 4-year law degree, the Laurea, there's also the Bologna or post-Bologna 3-year version in legal sciences. So you have to really pay attention to the major, the area of concentration, because this 3-year Bologna Laurea in legal sciences does not allow individuals to practice law. They can be in the law profession, but where it's non-regulated, in non-regulated roles. So to practice law, they really, again, need currently the Laurea Magistrale. So there's a lot of laureas, you gotta keep track. So now it's your turn to practice our Italian. If you could let me know what you believe the Dottore Magistrale means. Does it mean 1? If you could put in the chat. If you believe it refers to a doctorate or PhD, please put 1. If you believe it refers to a holder of a second cycle degree, please put 2 in the chat. Or fair enough, you're not sure, just put 3 in the chat. So again, I would like to know what we all think of the Dottore Magistrale. Is it 1, the doctorate, 2, holder of a second cycle degree, or 3, not sure? We've got some mixed responses here. We got some 1s, some 2s, some 3s. I appreciate everyone's honesty. Oh, changed my answer to 3. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a little rough. It can go either way. So yeah, quite the mix. 1s, 2s, and 3. So thank you, everyone. If we could go on to the next slide for the big reveal. So Dottore Magistrale actually refers to the it's the academic title for holders of second cycle degrees. If you just see Dottore by itself, it's the academic title for holders of the first cycle degree. And then Dottore di Ricerca is the academic title for holders of the third cycle degree. This, of course, begs the question, what is the PhD degree then referred to, the actual PhD degree in Italy? It's very similar sounding, except there's a few more syllables in there, and it's actually the dottorato di ricerca. So you have to really keep track of your terminology, keep track of the time period, the time of study, so that you know what it is that you're looking at. So now we're all now experts in Italian. Thanks for that.
And now that we've gone through and discussed a little bit of Italy, well, I guess we wouldn't take the Silk Road. We could get out of, southern Italy, but hang a right before you get to the mountains. Nancy, can you tell us what's going on down there once we miss the mountains?
Well, I'm going to talk about India, but first I'm going to talk about Chicago. We got our first snowfall, 3 to 4 inches of the season, but it should all be gone by later tonight, hopefully. So that's the weather report from Chicago. We received a question about the Bachelor of Design from India. And was this a 3 or 4 year degree? And is it equivalent to a US bachelor's degree, as it was not listed in EDGE? The degree in question was from the MIT Art, Design and Technology University in Pune. And yes, they do indeed have a 4-year Bachelor of Design program and many fields of study, different specializations, I should say, for that. And what we decided to do, because we had a number of other 4-year degree programs for listed in Acro Edge, and we decided to combine them into one credential analysis. We combined the degree, the Bachelor of Agricultural Sciences, the Bachelor of Science, a BSc, not to be confused with a plain 3-year Bachelor of Science. So you need to double check your mark sheets, have 4 years, 8 semesters of studies. Bachelor of Agriculture, a Bachelor of Nursing, that is clearly a 4-year program. After high school, standard 12, a Bachelor of Design, and the Bachelor of Forestry. All these programs listed here, the entrance is clearly the standard 12, not a diploma from a board, but standard 12, higher secondary certificate, intermediate certificate, etc. And it culminates in the 4-year bachelor's degree. We did not include the Bachelor of Engineering because there are potentially different pathways to get into a 4-year Bachelor of Engineering program. So we left that out. That has a separate entrance in the credential section of EDGE. So this is the answer to the question that somebody had. Is this Bachelor of Design a 4-year program? Yes, these are 4-year programs equivalent to a US bachelor's degree.
Thanks, Nancy.
You're welcome.
It's kind of a gray day here outside of Washington, D.C. I would like a little bit of snow, but I would like for it to be enough that, I can go sledding down a hill maybe. Speaking of hills, can we actually go up into those mountains and talk about Nepalese university grading? Leslie?
Yes, thank you, Drew. Continuing on the weather theme, some of you may have heard in the national news that Washington State got hit with a bomb cyclone. Just recently, it was a huge windstorm, lots and lots and lots of snow in the mountains. I work at Seattle University, and many of my colleagues lost power and still don't have power back. It's been several days now. I live in Tacoma, Washington, which is south of Seattle. And strangely enough, we were like this little pocket that didn't have much wind, absolutely no snow. So it's a crazy time of year, fall is. Getting back to Nepal, we had an EDGE user ask us, where are the letter grades and grade points that we see on Nepali university transcripts? And that's a really good point, because that's often what you will see when you receive transcripts from your Nepali applicants. So to start, Drew, if you could advance the slide, please. Oh, there you are. Okay, sorry. I just wanted to illustrate that Nepal has concurrently the traditional scale operating and the new quote letter GPA scale. So just to familiarize you with what a traditional scale is, it's a lot like India. If you've seen Indian records, you'll be familiar with the traditional marks-based scale on Nepali records. So we've got grades assigned with marks. We've got degree classes, first, second pass, for instance. And at the same time, we have institutions, universities that are using a more US looking grading scale associated with grade points. So if you look at these two examples, you'll see that on the left, the traditional scale was awarded at Tribhuvan University for a Bachelor of Science in a science field between 2015 and 2019. And on the right, you'll see that at Pokhara University, the student got a bachelor's degree in a science field between 2015 and 2019. So that's what can get a little bit confusing about this. It's really important that you're always looking at and reading carefully your documents to be sure what system you're working with. I'll just anecdotally say that at FU, we allow students to apply with unofficial transcripts that they upload into our system. And if they're admitted, then within their first term of study, they need to provide the official transcript. And what this means sometimes is that students will upload only the front of the document. We actually have put it in our application instructions. Please, international students, if you have grading scale information on the back of your documents, be sure to upload that as well. That saves you hours of internet searching. So just a tip about that. This next slide is a result of just a survey that I did of documents that I've actually seen. And I color-coded them so you could see that these are 4 different universities in Nepal. They're the ones that we get the bulk of applications from. And there are different degrees and different time periods. But you can see, interestingly, for instance, at Kathmandu University between 2012 and 2021, they were awarding different degrees, all with letters. At Pokhara University between 2005 and 2024, they were awarding degrees from different subject areas, all in letters. Purbanchal University, mostly letters unless you're getting law applicants. That has stuck to the traditional scale all the way up through at least 2022. Tribhuvan University is the oldest and largest university in Nepal, and they have stuck primarily to the percent scale. Undergrad degrees mostly at percent, at using the traditional percent scale, but you can see as we move into the 2020s, they are also moving toward using letters, and that last degree is a master's level degree, and they're using letters as well. So this is basically to indicate that there is no one universal, and you do need to look carefully at the documents and use your resources. Here's a screen clip from Purbanchal University. This was a transcript issued in 2020. And I just wanted to point out that I find it very interesting because you can see here that they've given their grade key. Thank you, we like that. They show that they're using letter grades that are associated with grade values. But then, because we think that probably universities, faculty, parents, students might still be thinking in terms of marks. So they helpfully give the equivalent marks percentage there in a column, and then their descriptors. So this is just an interesting phenomenon that I think is actually happening on the ground as people are still thinking in marks, but they are moving toward a letter scale. Next slide. We don't have we haven't updated EDGE yet, but when we do, it's going to look something like this. We're going to keep the traditional scale, give the new letter and GPA scale because you do see both of them. And one hot tip I wanted to give you before we go that doesn't have anything to do with this, but when you see the Nepali calendar, so dates from that calendar on documents, I had to look this up, but if you subtract 56 or 57 from the Nepali date, you'll get the date in the Gregorian calendar, so the calendar that we use. And with that, all done. Thank you.
Thanks, Leslie. Coming up, we've got a couple of things that we'd like to highlight. There's more free webinars. If you're enjoying this information that we're sharing with you, go check out all of our upcoming webinars. You can also access old recorded old recorded copies of these Edge user groups, as well as a bunch of other options. Use the same logins that you do across all of your Acro logins. We've got additional benefits for you if you are already an Acro subscriber, which is different from an Edge subscription. Acro members will get that discounted Edge subscription. On the next slide, we talk about one of those benefits where you can access the Acro Exchange, which has lots of communities where you can share knowledge, you can ask questions, you can connect with and connect a network, and that is exclusive to Acro members. And so if you are part of an Acro member institution, that is already something that's available for you. And something else that you would get a discount on would be trainings that we offer, online courses that we have. Julia, would you like to talk about one of our in-person events that we're going to have coming up in Washington, D.C.? I guess it's next year.
You betcha. Every year Acro runs basically two institutes. They used to be called the Summer Institute and the Winter Institute. Here is the one that's coming up in February, so you can guess which one that was. It is a packed agenda, 4 days of nonstop learning. And if you have somebody new coming into your office, if you have a team that's new, this is a great way to get them trained all at once, hearing the same information and from a great group of faculty. Annetta Stroud typically leads this group, and there are rotating faculty. I believe, Robert, will you be there in February? I believe he will be.
I will.
He teaches and has taught at this institute really since the beginning of certainly the transfer one that we do transfer credit. So it's just really a great opportunity for you, anybody in your office that's new, your team, to learn about basically credential evaluation throughout the world. Robert, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure. It really is an opportunity to hear information on country. One of the problems with Edge, and and we purposely try to keep it that way, Edge is designed to be a tool. It's not necessarily designed to teach you how to evaluate credentials. It'll certainly help you, but it's not designed to be a teaching tool for learning how to do this if you're just starting out. The institutes, on the other hand, are designed for exactly that. And that is to introduce you to not only country educational systems, but also best practices, keys or sources, methodology, those kinds of things. So it's a pretty intensive 4 days. And it's not just one person talking. It's several of us, credentials evaluation agency folks, but also institution-based folks and so on. So a good faculty. Alex Morosky of Scalaro is fantastic. Just a great bunch of folks. And so I really encourage you to give some thought to coming to DC. Weather's not that bad in February, particularly late February, and be part of that learning opportunity. Thanks, Julia.
You're welcome. It's also a great way for you to network. You'll go there and you'll sit with groups of people that you'll get to meet and get to know, and you're all kind of in the same boat. So you'll really find yourself with a nice network after this event as well. All right, that's it. Turning it over to you, Drew.
Really, we're turning it right back to any questions that we have that folks would like to pose for what we have for everyone today. I don't see that we've got a lot that's been coming in. Jasmine, I believe you answered a question already.
I did, and I thought it would be good for me to just kind of repeat what the question was, because it was a good question. the attendee had asked whether the, I jotted it down, the Public Authority for Applied Education and Training, the acronym is PAAET in Kuwait. It has two branches that it oversees. It has colleges and institutes. And our Edge user had mentioned that on Edge Kuwait, there is reference made to institute, but with no credential equivalence or recommendation. We do address the PAAET programs or credentials offered by their approved colleges, but not the institutes. So what I wrote to in the response was that the PAAET colleges offer academic programs that include theory and practice, and they lead to specific credentials that have academic value in terms of credit comparability. But the institutes that the PAAET oversees are designed to meet the immediate needs of the labor market. So they're very vocational focused, they're technical, they're there to prepare the individuals so that they can leave and qualify for a job in their specialty. The colleges are designed to provide them with academic as well as, practical content. So you can see where the difference is. One is academic, that means it can provide them access to further education. The other is very much focused on vocational training for the job market.
Yeah, and if I could add to what Jasmine just said,
Thank you.
for the vocational institutes, while most enter with a high school qualification, some may enter only with lower secondary, so there's that issue. You don't see transfer credit happening. It's much more hands-on and practical in orientation, as Jasmine said.
What's interesting here is that Edge has a tendency, like so many of us that are practitioners in this field over the years, has a tendency to look past professional development training and not include it in our discussions, largely because most of us, in fact, I'd say the vast majority of us, do not award credit for professional development non-HEI, higher education institution courses and programs. However, it seems one of the overarching principles of Edge, when you mention a credential, you're supposed to have that credential in the credentials page. We can sidestep this because we're not talking in that entry that the user just saw about a credential. We're talking about sort of a program. But I think what we could do, and I'll pose it at the next meeting, Jasmine, is that we could possibly add to that note a little bit to suggest the reason why, and thus show why it's not in the credentials page, and say that that credit is generally not recommended for professional development training taking place at the training institutes, or something to that effect.
Interesting. Thank you. So one of the things that we really do value is when we have users that are reaching out, that are letting us know questions that they have, things that they've identified, such as when we mention a credential, or in this case, a program, and don't follow up on it later on. We really do want to provide comprehensive information for you. And that's why I love that we can make these updates. When we learn something new, we can incorporate that, and we can be sure that that's pushed out. When we have new updates that we want to share with you, be sure the bookmark feature should be back up and running again. We once we switched over from a previous system to this one, you may have remembered just a couple of hitches in the giddy up, but we made it through, and all of your old bookmarks should be retained. All of your new bookmarks should be bringing notifications to you the first time you log into Edge after there's been an update made to a system that you've bookmarked. Now, remember, the things that we're going to talk about are those recommendations that the IESC makes, these volunteer experts that are getting together and really just want to have the best answer for you. And so anything that's going to go in there, that's going to be those grading scale recommendations. That's going to be any advice that changes for credentials. These are like this expertise is what you're getting when you access an Edge subscription. And if you are an Acro member, you're going to get that Edge subscription at that discounted rate. If you look at the slide that we have up right now, we do talk about just a couple of the benefits to being an Acro member. We've already got about 23. I remember that many of you represented an institutional or are here in an institutional capacity today. Is your institution already an Acro member? For those of you that are not yet Edge subscribers, be sure to check that out before you get that Edge subscription. You get that discount, and you'd also get access to all of Exchange and all of those that wealth of knowledge that you get out of all those communities. If there are any other questions, I encourage all of you to go ahead and put them in. I'm going to try to draw one more time a little bit of information. I saw there were some questions about scholarships. I am unfamiliar with any scholarship for just attending an institute. We do. It is Gloria's birthday, and we do have the Gloria Nathanson Fund. It's a research fund that allows you to contribute to research efforts. But I don't know of any offhand that are specifically for attending institutes. But I'll get my brain thinking, and if there's anything that I can, any updates that I can provide, the third Thursday of the month is when we are going to gather right here. You can register by going in to look at the webinar pages there for Acro, and you'll get that notification coming back to you about opportunities to register again. So, yeah. If there's no other questions, let's see. Here we go. Dave, would you like to come on and talk about about the way to universally apply a grading scale? Is a C plus a 2.7 worldwide? Is one of the questions that we have in here. We could just talk about the way that a 2.7 might be seen here versus we talked about India earlier today. If we just had to pick one, system to discuss, you want to start there?
Sure. There are two other questions that have been added, since the one involving Kuwait. So, but I'm sure somebody would want to jump in on top of this. But a C plus in another system's grading scale may well be very much not comparable to 2.7 as we would have it marked in the US. Even within the US, sometimes, they have 2.67 for a C plus, depending on, how they interpret the 4-point US scale. But I would say no would be my general answer to that question. Emily, if you want to jump in, or anybody else, feel free.
I think you summed it up quite well, Dave. We have had a similar question from one of the new people we hired last year, and I kind of chuckled and said the short answer is no, not necessarily. And then I said, well, actually, it depends, which I joke is my favorite answer. And then I tried to explain it, and it turned out to be like an hour-long answer, and I could see that their eyes were glazing over. So we say that you have to determine what that C plus grade. I don't know if you're talking about American C plus grade, if you're talking about, say, a Nova Scotian C plus grade, whatever. You have to look and compare what is that grade in the home country, and is there a parallel in the United States? Is the descriptor for that grade the same as the C plus descriptor is for us? And can you say that that's the equivalent of a C plus? It may not be exactly 2.7 in that non-US country, but you could still figure out a way to determine what it would be equivalent to in the US.
I'd like to make a comment too. Two comments, actually. The first one is in the US, we usually consider a C plus to be a 2.3, not a 2.7. But at my institution, we have gone around and around with a version of this question. Some of our academic departments see letter grades on international student transcripts and have been having a hard time understanding that a C is simply a letter. It is not tied to a universal standard, nor does the C, if you see it outside of the United States, mean exactly the same thing as it means in the US. So no, the answer is there aren't any universal meanings for grades. We engage a lot with India because Indian institutions also use the letter scale, but they use it quite differently connected to their 10 scale than we use letter grades in the United States. So it's a reminder that we always use our resources. We always have to go back to the resources and look to see what we're dealing with and not make any assumptions. Just because it looks like a duck doesn't mean it actually quacks like a duck.
Yeah, I'm pretty bad at identifying everything. I talk about Christmas geese and Christmas swans, and I've been banned from being the person that is identifying nature. So I'm not always good at seeing those ducks. Robert, you wanted to add something, it looks like?
No, I was just going to jump ahead to the next question.
Thank you.
There are two more that we have. One is pretty simple and pretty straightforward, and that is there a single source database, what have you, that gives all the recognized or accredited, I forget the word that was used in the question, institutions around the world? And the answer is, of course, no, there's not. There are a compendium of sources. And one of the things we teach, for example, at the Institute, is that while there are different kinds of sources, I'm sure you learned this in university as well, some are primary, some are secondary. There is a source that a lot of people enjoy because it's free and it's relatively comprehensive, and that's called the World Higher Education Database, WHED, W-H-E-D. However, it is not a primary source. What it purports to do is to take lists of recognized institutions from ministries of education and put them out there by country, alphabetized within the country entry, and make that available. The problem is that sometimes it's not always up to date. It will definitely not include institutions recognized by other governmental ministries, such as defense or health, and it won't list those institutions that are not degree granting. For example, a community college wouldn't be in there, or a polytechnic in another country that has 3-year diplomas. So it has to be used with a great deal of care. What you will find instead, if you go country by country, is you'll find that increasingly countries are beginning to create database councils, accreditation councils, that list the institutions in their country and give their recognition status. For example, the Higher Education Commission in Pakistan, or the National Universities Commission in Nigeria, and so on and so forth. So it's really a case of you're having to deal country by country with what that country offers in the way of post-secondary recognition or accreditation. I say accreditation, I used to always avoid that word when talking outside the United States, but in fact, increasingly countries are moving towards some form of quote unquote accreditation in addition to their recognition. So it's really a case by case situation.
And then I also saw there was a question that came in that was specifically talking about a grading scale. And whenever there are questions like that are going to come in, it's always very useful to provide all of the rationale, to provide all of the redacted documents. Within each page in Edge, there is an opportunity for you to upload copies of documents. And so even from the grading scale page, that would be where we would be able to look at that and bring that into the list of questions that the IESC is going to look at. But I don't have any thoughts immediately. Robert,
well, let me jump in here, Drew.
Yeah.
because I was looking at that question and found it pretty interesting. I actually wanted to tackle it before the other, but I felt it was important to deal with the institutional question. But in a nutshell, the question is based. The questioner is asking, okay, we have discovered that grading in Vietnam seems to be pretty severe. So basically, she's not just hearing it from students in the office. She's actually seeing it from recruiters on the ground who talk with educational officials in Vietnam, evidently. And my response to that simply is this: the scale is the scale. We will compile scale comparabilities, U.S. grade comparabilities, based on a number of factors. Sometimes we look at different sources. What did IERF say once upon a time? Was there an ACRO book that was done on that scan to edge, and what was said by that author at that time? And put all these things plus our own experience, seeing what comes across your desk, and then make and then discuss it, of course, and get different viewpoints, and then finally come up with a decision. Let me address what is at the nub of this question, and that is, when we see that grading is severe, should we, from our perspective, modify the U.S. grade equivalencies or comparabilities in order to take into account this severity of grading? And the answer to that is absolutely not. And the reason is this: we know there are a number of countries out there that grade very rigorously. For example, Thailand. For example, Peru. Absolutely, France and other Francophone countries that use that same Francophone educational system, because the thinking is still the same. Don't give Johnny or Susie the grade that possibly they deserve, because they won't work hard anymore. And so we need to give them low grades to make them keep working harder. And finally, at the end, they may get what they deserve. But the answer, but I guess what I'm trying to say to the questioner is that if we know that the Vietnamese are grading harder, and you're worried about the fact that these folks all seem to have C's, for example, which is average, or Trung Binh, you don't switch that to a B in your comparability. Instead, what you do is you say, you know what, maybe I should admit some C+ students or even C students, because they're really pretty good and their grading is really quite severe. But we can't change the fact that average means average, that average is always defined by us as a C. It's the old concept of, well, a B at Harvard's an A anywhere else, that sort of thing. So I'm going to let my colleagues kind of jump in here and add to it and see if I was a little too severe on that.
I don't think so, Robert, because I agree with your position. Just because the grading might be a little bit more harsh doesn't mean that we should give them, I don't want to say a step up, but we should increase their grade. And we do explain sometimes in our internal documentation that this is a particularly harsh or severe grading scale, and it is not uncommon for students to typically earn XYZ range of grades, so that they have kind of an idea that the student may be performing at or above the norm for the country, but we don't necessarily change the grades. Does that make sense?
I will just answer Shelby's question. It makes perfect sense to me. It's a slippery slope. There are differences between departments and faculties within given university, whether you're in the United States or someplace else. I know my perception has been that grading is severe in Vietnam, and then I will see some programs where you have people scoring, in the 9.3, 9.4 range, a couple different applicants. Those are obviously very qualified students. And I think just to kind of jump on what Robert said, rather than trying to adjust the scale for every single vagary, you really have to go forward with the information that you can glean from, various sources that, yes, it is severe. maybe, you shouldn't be doing a straight numerical comparison where you're giving 10 points in Vietnam a 4 and 9 points a 3.7 and so on down the line. So if we were to do that kind of adjustment, all of a sudden you'd be doing what some U.S. schools do, saying that a Bachelor of Technology from a certain school that goes below a certain grade on the NAAC scale is not a bachelor's degree anymore. I mean, it's very difficult, and it implies a level of accuracy that we simply can't have from school to school, from department to department. So yeah.
And what do you do in the reverse case, where a system has a large number of students that are receiving those high grades? Do you adjust it accordingly? Where do you put
Drew,
that
I'll
weight?
jump in on that one as well. Let me tell a brief story. Once upon a time, I was at a NAFSA conference years and years and years ago, where the legendary Leo Sweeney, who's authored so many books on India, said he frankly admitted, because there was no severity of grading in India, that perhaps the 60 to 69% range, still in the first class, might be better considered a USB rather than an A. But then at the same time, I say to myself, wait a minute, a first class is a first class. I know there's first class with distinction in 70 and above, but it's still a first class. It's still an A. And so you just can't really tamper with something like that. And we know there's several countries where grading is really not severe. Russia is another example. There are just a lot of these, but you can't tamper with the scale. You've got to keep the scale the same and adjust your thinking in terms of your admission practices, so that what you might do in the case of India is just look beyond the GPA, perhaps look at the nature of the institution. It is an institution of national importance. There's 140 of those, like the IITs and so forth. Or is it Madras or Calcutta or Delhi? Those are the prestigious schools and so on. Perhaps you think of it in those kinds of terms, but you don't want to mess with the scale, as Dave said. Back to you, Drew.
You're muted.
It's a lot more difficult for you to hear me if I don't unmute myself. That seems to be a pretty good summary that we heard from a few of these other folks. Any final thoughts that anyone would like to add today before I say thank you for joining us and encourage you all to come back again with us next month?
Drew, we had one more that I think we can dispatch kind of quickly. This regards short courses and advanced short learning programs in South Africa, and an applicant's assertion that 3 of these should be considered comparable to a U.S. bachelor's degree. Number 1, I'm dubious. Number 2, you should be able to figure out where these lie on the National Qualification Framework in South Africa, which is quite easy to find and quite detailed. In any case, if it's 3 years, we're not, recognizing traditionally the 3-year after maturity bachelor in South Africa. So that's what I would do, rather than I haven't seen those, documents. So I would hate to give an equivalency out or a comparability statement without seeing them. But that's what I would do, is just check into those.
It is kind of like the concept of adding 3 associate's degrees together. They still don't make a bachelor's degree.
Yeah. Well, guys, I really appreciate all of the thoughtful commentary, all of the information that we're sharing, all the research that's done, and all of your questions. So once again, when you're going through EDGE, if you come across something that you have identified, you have a question about, you have an example of a document that is redacted, not just covered up, because all of that data does still live there. Redaction is different than just covering it up. But if you send in those redacted copies, we'll be able to look at everything, put it in our queue, have those discussions, and be able to do the research and report back to you about what we truly believe the best way to move forward is. next month, third Thursday. We plan on being here, and we hope to see you then. Thankful for you. Goodbye.